So for those of you attending today, hopefully you know about Communiteer, but I just thought I'd just do a quick little brief, I guess, to fill in who we are. And today we're presenting this webinar in conjunction with our partner AVI. So Alex is representing AVI, Australian Volunteers International. And so about Communiteer in the education space, we're using student volunteering as a vehicle to make meaningful individual, university and societal change. We empower students to find their purpose while at the same time developing their skills aligned to learning outcomes, making professional connections and developing their social CV. So this program that we're going to be talking about, or this topic we're talking about, will empower international students to develop their transferable skills, establish a professional network, and build their awareness of the social and economical challenges that will form the foundations of their career. I really just like to summarize this in Communiteer is a social good network, and we work with students to build them or to help them grow into great global citizens. So taking that concept of the transferable skills they learn and bringing that into their work when they move into the workforce. How we help this is probably more that return on investment to the Institute is we support through everything that we do. The foundation of our platform is all built on the SDGs, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If you don't know what they are, you can have a look on our website later to have a little read. The ones that we mainly support in this space is Goal 4 and Goal 8. So Goal 4, quality education, Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. And then the way that we support at the institute level is boosting employability scores by building your students' confidence in skills, improving course relevance, and creating social impact through activities that have purpose. We do this through our platform and a selection of programs. So our programs are based around awareness, experience, and connection. So awareness is learning about the social causes and creating impact. Experience is where they build their transferable and technical skills through doing, and connection is that relationships. So we have some of our programs have mentoring themes to them, which was something that we spoke about in our last event that we had. And this is where the connection component happens and they can start to build their network whilst they're still at university. So that's a little bit about who Communiteer is. I would like to move along and introduce Alex from AVI, and Alex will introduce our panelists. So rather than spending time having death by PowerPoint, let's get into our discussion today. So Alex, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and to be facilitating alongside Michelle today. So as Michelle mentioned, I work at AVI as an international program lead. You might have heard about AVI. We've been a leader in international volunteering for over 70 years now, and we're the lead delivery partner for the Australian Volunteers program that we manage on behalf of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And our approach is really to bring the right people together to share skills, knowledge, and experience to really strengthen capacity and support locally led sustainable initiatives. That's why we've partnered with Communiteer to deliver some of the program like mentoring for students and volunteering. And at AVI, we also manage a number of other programs, amongst which we deliver student mobility opportunities and advisories to universities. So we're joined today by a great panel of speakers. So I'll hand over to Peter Graves from Torrens University to introduce himself. Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, Peter Graves. I work at Torrens University in Australia, and that's part of a NASDAQ-listed private university as part of SEI. So I head up the Social Enterprise Hub, which works across all of our faculties and also across our campuses, driven out of supporting the university's social impact agenda and contributing to student employability. So we apply a range of different models, from kind of academic research projects involving our students, hackathons, competitions, and through to traditional kind of live briefs kind of project undertaken by classes of students, internships, and more recently where we have students undertaking their placement within the hub itself in supporting academics to deliver business services to our clients. So I'm really keen to be part of the discussion and have been supportive of the work that Communiteer have been doing.
Thank you very much, Peter.
And over to Veronica from UTS.
Thanks, Peter. Well, my name's Veronica. I manage an extracurricular global leadership program at UTS called UTS Build. Build actually stands for Beyond UTS International Leadership Development, but it's a bit of a mouthful, so we just say Build. The Build program's aims are to develop student mindsets and capabilities to become global leaders and active global citizens, obviously with the aim that they go out in their life as students, but obviously further on in their career to have a positive social impact locally, obviously, but also in the world beyond with that very broad global mindset. We are part of the UTS International unit at UTS. But we work alongside a lot of other programs that support a range of development skills for students that a lot of people don't like the term soft skills anymore because they are really not all that soft. They're very important professional enabling skills. So we work with a lot of programs to do that. Basically, the program is really important because it supports UTS's commitment to cultivate graduates with international and intercultural capabilities that help them become effective global citizens as well. And the program is important as well because we really work in that space that is, I often call that overlap or the glue between international students coming into to Australia, into the campus, but also with domestic students exploring opportunities to have global learning experiences overseas. And we try very hard to work in that overlap space so that the two cohorts aren't just ships in the night that pass coming in and coming out. And the cultural immersion piece is important to us in that space. So I'm sure I can share more as we go on through the questions, but that's me. And it's my pleasure to throw over to Muskan now.
Thanks, Veronica. Hi, I am Muskan Naldev, and I'm a recent graduate from UNSW. I always tell people that I arrived in Australia like with a very big bang. That's just because when I arrived, everything went into a lockdown. But yeah, jokes apart, I came to Australia from India as an international student back in the year 2020. I've always been intrigued by the world of business, how resources, technology, and manpower work together as one unit. This eventually led me to pursue my education and my career in commerce. I have done my master's in marketing analytics from UNSW. I also have a bachelor's degree in business administration from India. And now I'm currently working with Communiteer as the sector engagement coordinator. That's about me. Alex, would you like to take from here?
Thank you so much, Muskan, Veronica, and Peter. It's great to have you with us today to have a chat really about cultural immersion programs and how they support the development of students as good global citizens. So we really want that discussions to be really unprescriptive and flow naturally. So please feel free to put on your questions in the chat as well if you want to participate. So maybe let's start by just talking about the initiatives that universities propose to either international students or domestic students who go overseas on an international cross-cultural experience? And what sort of initiatives do you have that support these cultural immersion experience? So maybe, Pete, I might throw that question to you to kickstart.
I covered that a little bit in my intro, but effectively, you know, it's about 60% of our students will be international students. I think one of the impacts of COVID is not all those international students are coming back into Australia to study. So it's a balancing act between, and as part of that theme that we talked about, creating global citizens, that, you know, a lot of the students who are coming to Australia are often seeking residency, right? So when it comes to getting a gig, a paid gig, they're kind of often behind the 8 ball. They don't understand our culture. They don't understand our workplaces. Probably don't understand our humour. So when we compare that to domestic students, you know, it's often a tough gig. So through the Social Enterprise Hub, we are kind of creating opportunities for them to connect with social enterprise or any enterprise seeking to have bring about a social impact or benefit, right? And it's commensurate with their skills, their interests, their capability, because we want to make sure, in terms of building our global customer base, that we're delivering value to the clients so we keep them rather than just churn them. But at the same time, it's giving students early stage immersive experience in the world of work within the Australian context. Having said that, it's also about recognising, you know, that there will be a bunch of students that don't come to campus, don't come to Australia, as we're establishing kind of our global campus and having recently appointed our dean for the global campus. So we've got to balance up between understanding of the Australian culture, but recognising that in terms of the impact of our graduates and stuff, it's also often them going back into their own countries to be leaders and have that impact. So often, you know, students are looking for Australian immersive experiences, which we provide, but it's also about recognising their need and their desire often to go and have that impact in their own society. So often you're balancing up, but ultimately what we're trying to do is increase their capacity, well, their ability to get a gig, right? Have some interesting experiences, because often with social enterprises, the need is huge. The skills and expertise of those enterprises often wanting, but we've got to provide an environment where we often are supporting the students and the enterprises to deliver two-way value, both to the student and the enterprise.
Thanks a lot, Peter. And that's interesting. You're mentioning about the preparation or the expectation that international students might have before coming to Australia. We'll deep dive a bit more into that, and also on the global campus that you're trying to build, and how universities have been accommodating the transition into virtual learning to sort of emulate these cultural immersion. So we'll also come back to this. Victoria, would you like to share a bit more details around the initiative that you've started talking about in your introduction that UTS is proposing?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Basically, my program in particular, the way we approach cultural immersion is by facilitating a learning environment where international and domestic students see each other as a community of peers. So we're not looking at the employability space directly. I suppose that's a little different from Peter's program, but we're looking at opportunities whilst they're on campus to really develop those cultural immersion skills. So we through everything that we offer, we run a range of workshops, training opportunities, speaker sessions, online, in person, a whole range of opportunities as part of our program for them to move through the requirements. And basically, we encourage them to see the learning space in the program as a community of peers. We've deliberately chosen to step away from the often one model of cultural immersion, which is the buddy program, where you buddy up a senior, either senior domestic or international student with a new student. There are a couple of reasons for that. The first reason was because other programs in the university were already running buddy programs, either in faculty or central support units. And the other reason that we chose a different approach, I guess, to cultural immersion in our program from a buddy initiative is that for us, a buddy, there's an inherent power differential between a newly arrived international student and an existing domestic student in particular, I suppose, who's this is their land, so to speak, in Australia. It might be a little bit different if it's a senior international student. And basically, we didn't really want to reinforce a sense that a new international student might have feeling as the other. And not that I'm criticizing buddy programs at all, they definitely have their place, but because they already exist, we wanted to take a different approach to cultural immersion. And so in our events and activities, we welcome and encourage students to share as peers over the various topics that we cover. So we might be talking about what does a just society look like as a global citizen and what role can you play? And in the workshops, we'll have facilitators that will run students through what is a minimum standard of housing. You know, and students who've come from, you know, first world developed countries will say, oh, well, you know, you've got a roof over your head and facilities, etc. Now, some students in our group, particularly some international students, might actually have come from rural villages in another country. And so they can share what to them their experiences of housing look like. And because we set it up that they're a community of peers learning together, we encourage them to have that to start developing that cultural understanding with each other, which helps the international student feel empowered that they can share something that is new to the domestic students, and also the domestic students to be encouraged to ask questions and learn. Again, going back to my introduction of trying to be the glue between the two in our program, not having them seen as ships in the night, the ones that come into Australia and the ones that go out. We also have very targeted workshops in intercultural understanding and cultural intelligence to try and encourage students to understand capabilities, concepts around cultural immersion. And these are open to all students in our program, but also open to any student who wishes to do them. And again, they're a mixed group of international domestic students. And basically the idea is to help the students learn the skills that will support cultural understanding, cultural agility, and immersion. We're also working on a project that we hope will get off the ground to try and in the near future roll out this cultural understanding in a suite of self-leadership, resilience and cultural agility skills as a foundational leadership program for all UTS students. But that's a little bit down the track. But really, I guess in a way, it's trying to embed this as a thing that everybody has to have, everybody should have, not just one set of students. So that's kind of some of the initiatives we're doing.
Thank you very much for sharing, Victoria. It's really interesting to see how the BUILD program is questioning that power balance, which is something that at AVI, particularly through the Australian Volunteers program that we run, is always something that we have in the back of our mind when we prepare volunteers to go overseas. It's really, I think, setting up best practice for these students in their career and or soft skills, as you said. You don't like that word, but so I think that's really interesting. Maybe we'll go to Ms. Khan to ask her perspective as an international student who came to Australia around the preparation before, Ms. Khan, you arrived in country and once you were here. So did you feel prepared? And if yes, what helped you getting ready and manage your expectations before coming to Australia? And if not, where do you think the gaps, what do you think the gaps were?
Yeah, to be honest, like I was prepared on my own, but there are always things that you can't really anticipate sitting in a different country before you come here. So I did go through all the university website. I went through the handbooks, the courses. I tried to join Facebook groups of my university. I did everything I could do on my behalf, and still I felt like I was not that prepared, because the anxiety of going to a country where I don't know anyone was always there in behind my head. Other than that, like, I was ready for my academics and my professional careers goals with everything, but the only thing that I was lacking was the social aspect, because the culture is so different. I'm coming here where I don't know anyone, so that's something that that was bothering me before even I landed here. So that's something that I would have liked my university to do for me, maybe set up a networking event or something where I could just talk to other students, like not just students coming from India, but anywhere in the world who are coming to Australia, just so that I could talk to them, just know that, okay, there's someone that when I land here, I can connect with, and I can start my journey with them, and not just like I need to go and figure out everything on my own. So that would have been good for me.
Thanks, Muskan. So yeah, we see it's not easy to settle down and just land in a new country and get your head around the culture and local practice, etc. So Peter, at Torrens, do you, in a more really practical way, how do you prepare international students before they come to Australia? Do you provide intercultural awareness training? Do you provide really practical tips around finding accommodations and all that sort of tools and resources that can help students settle down when they arrive? Or do they have a buddy or similar programs that are available to them to help them really to facilitate that transition?
Yeah, I probably not across the, in reality, in depth what we do as a university, but I can talk to the fact that the support that we provide students often is through the success coach they're allocated. So that can kind of that can assist in anything to do with their student experience. And we'll often use our SRCs, our student representative councils, as a vehicle for getting student engagement. I have SRC members working in the social enterprise hub. So when I'm seeking to reach out to students and new students, increase their awareness of what we do, what the university does, often I'm using them as the channel rather than some white-haired middle-aged man, and so peer-to-peer communication, but also getting student-led projects, I think, is a way that we help prepare. In the business faculty, and as I said, we work across faculties, we are restructuring our curriculum to increase and as a university, we're revisiting our curriculum to make it a greater emphasis on experiential learning. And so rather than kind of placements or working with industry being an optional extra that, maybe beyond your studies you might get to do, it's becoming an expectation increasingly for our students that they will have engagement in order with a client or with industry, right? Rather than just learning about theory, it's about the application of that theory to the real world. And that's kind of like where the hub comes in, is that, like in the course of a year, we'll create 1,700 student experiences. We've got a population of about 20,000 students between Australia and New Zealand. So we're using a range of different models. Those models vary according to the faculties. Faculties have their own kind of models and ways of engaging students. But we're trying to create little steps that they can undertake to learn more about the Australian culture, the way of work. The other aspect, which is relevant to the work of Communiteer, is that in developing their employability skills, we're trying to, and coming back to the global citizen kind of concept, we're trying to encourage them to, not only think about their own studies and themselves, and that's a big challenge, that's a big shift for international students coming to Australia, but we want them to be able to connect with other students so that they support each other but also thinking about the communities in which they are living and often working, and how can they have some kind of leadership contribution or impact in those communities and societies. So we have a bunch of employability modules that we offer the students to prepare them for the world of work and understand the context of work in Australia. But we, within the hub, and where students can come in and do their internship with us and helping us to deliver business services to our clients around the world, we screen them to determine their degree of fit, their preferences, and then we will help them to find the best curriculum home to support, to get credit for their experience. So, baby steps, lots of support through SRC, through the success coaches, but over time and as their studies progress, giving them more significant and challenging opportunities to work. So, I've found from our experiences that kind of the live brief, so that people are familiar with that approach, but it's where a bunch of students take on a client challenge as a class-based thing, is a great entry point when they start to think about the issues, the challenge for the enterprise, especially social enterprises, and come up with ideas, solutions, strategies, which they then pitch back to the client for implementation. I found that to be an amazingly powerful way of getting students to think about how they can contribute to solving business problems, but also how they can contribute to a social impact or outcome as well.
Thanks very much, Peter. I think from what you're saying, student engagement and participative experience where students play an active role and get out of their comfort zone, learn by interacting with their peers, are really empowering tools to really help them develop skills that they will be able to transpose in their career, but also in their personal life, and to help them as well decide where their place is or what sort of career path they want to pursue, because I think that's a great opportunity for them to actually make informed decisions around what they want to do with their life. So it seems to be really empowering for these students. And so just with COVID, obviously, universities had and continue to have to really adapt their learning modalities. And according to recent studies, students haven't returned to the lecture theatres in the same proportion as they were pre-pandemic. And a few reasons have been cited to explain that. So economic reasons is one. So students, a lot of students, domestic or international, have to take on part-time jobs to finance their study. There's an increase in mental health issues amongst young people. And also for first-year students, they've simply never experienced the benefit of being in a lecture theatre at the same level as their peers from upper years. So we just want to understand maybe how your respective universities are tackling on that challenge and adapting the ways you are proposing all of these activities and programs to really emulate cultural immersion experience, but virtually, which is a bit more challenging and not always the same as having hands-on experience in a country. So maybe Victoria, did you want to start with your ideas on that?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. There has been a change in student engagement on campus. I don't work in a faculty, so I'm not in the academic space, but I talk to quite a few academic colleagues, and there is a change in the faculties. There's a change in programs like ours, which are optional or elect-in programs, I suppose. Students still want to be involved, but there are so many other things that are now settled in their lifestyle. As you mentioned, jobs, they just got used to the convenience of not having to be physically somewhere because the lecture was online, for example. So we are grappling with all of that. I think some of the things that we've done to manage that is in our program in particular, we do still have quite a lot of opportunity for students to do content online. We do like in person, but if people aren't showing up as readily, we're trying to figure out what time of the year they might be more willing to be there. I think as soon as assessments roll in, now that they can do things online, they want to stay home and do assessment work, quickly jump onto a lecture or an information session, quickly jump off. So we're sort of looking at that. And so trying to get our message and the content out there, but giving it as much accessibility as possible. And I think that is the same in many, some of my academic colleagues in lectures, they're trying to do the same. Some are insisting students come back for certain types of work, which is understandable. Anything that needs human, lab work and all of that equipment. Others are just learning. We have an LX lab on campus that really helps staff learn a range of skills at how to be better presenters, how to present content that is more engaging rather than just having slides and you read off the slides. Probably most universities do that, but speaking for ours, and this activities in the lab have increased. I'm part of a network of mostly academics that I listen to what they say and how they share tips and ideas of building best engagement. Early in the pandemic, we had one science lecturer in forensic science who kept the students in his class guessing every lecture as to what he will wear, because he basically changed his background, and he'd be Indiana Jones on one day with the hat on and the background. Another day he'd be a deep sea diver and the background would be under the ocean. So people have been trying to find entertaining but also educational ways of keeping engagement going. Specifically down to the cultural immersion with international students. We have really tried hard in the whole university, and I'm part of the international office, so I know that there's been a lot of online opportunities for students to connect, to reach out to advisors. We have a system called TAP, which is the ambassador platform, and that was really ramped up during, it was there before, but it was ramped up during the last 2 years so that students either prior to applying to come or students who've just been accepted can chat with other students online about anything that they want to talk about, so that there is a bit of a connection there as well. Another really great initiative that my colleagues set up for study abroad and exchange students who also couldn't come into the country was a program through Canvas called Culture Connect. And basically it was designed as a gateway to Australian life and culture. So whilst the students were doing subjects online, they were able to go into a space where they would have little modules rolled out week by week that aligned with the stage of their adjustment to the session of study or the semester of study. So the first week or two is getting to know Australia and getting to know the lingo and getting to know slang. And even though they weren't in the country, but they were introducing them to this, understanding Indigenous culture. Then there'd be another module that might be getting a little bit further into session where they would introduce maybe a little more culture, but also where do you go if you're getting your first assignment and you think you're failing, where can you get help? And so this whole program was rolled out and it was really well received by the students. And they were looking at rolling it out now to full degree students, because it was originally just for the study abroad and exchange students who were not able to come into the country. So there are a range of initiatives, I guess, that are across the campus that we've been looking at. Our Faculty of Engineering also has a initiative that they have modified over the last couple of years as a result of international students not being able to come in until recently. It's called the iSupport program, where they'll have senior international students who are in the country, who mostly got stuck in the country and didn't want to leave, to connect with international students who are still stuck overseas. And basically there's a structured program where they can have peer buddy kind of arrangements. There is a matching process that goes on, but there is also an online element where the students can go through content and get support through that as well on their own and with the person that they're matched up with. So there have been a lot of programs that have popped up, many of them online, to make them more accessible to students during the COVID era. And some of the programs that used to exist in person that couldn't, they're now coming back. And so we have a big network cafe program that is just starting back up, where international students have a combination of social and career information that's shared with them in a group, in a fun, friendly place. And that's now ramping back up because some students have been able to come in. So we've really just kept adapting a lot in the last 2 years to try and deal with the limitations and the opportunities that, you know, this pandemic has brought.
Thanks, Victoria. It's really inspiring to see all the creativity that has been sparked by COVID and the lockdowns, etc. So it's actually really good to see all these initiatives and how you've been able to tweak existing programs or create new ones from this experience. Ms. Khan, I'm going to come to you now. You arrived in Australia in 2020, you mentioned, so that must have been not an easy start for you with COVID and starting your journey as a student in Australia in the middle of a pandemic. So could you just reflect on your experience, and you can maybe sharing access to this type of initiative that might have supported you when you were settling down in Australia, and also reflecting on your experience and what you think you have gained from settling down in Australia as an international student and now as a professional in your career. So what sort of skills or soft skills or personal and professional skills you have developed from that?
Yeah. I do agree with Veronica, like the initiatives that they have just started would have helped me a lot to just understand Australian lingo, slang, culture, and how to navigate, because that's something that I struggle. Like I don't blame anyone, because that 1 year was uncertain for everyone. And I'm glad that everyone in the education sector is working on that part now. I would have loved to be a part of that course or program that you have, Veronica, but I'm glad that you're working on it, because that's something that I think I was lacking, because it's not something like I don't know English or I don't know how to talk. It was more like I don't know how to connect with Australians. I didn't know how to like I was part of a few conversations. They were talking about something, but I just didn't have any knowledge what they were talking about, because they had different slangs, they had different topics to talk about, and it took me some time to just understand how they speak and what they're talking about, what are the main topics that they talk about. So yeah, that would have really helped me. But other than that, if I look back to the 2 years that I've almost been in Australia, I've gained a lot, and I think I've lost a lot also because of COVID. When I was about to come to Australia, I had plans, like I would take part in events, I would be more active on campus, I'll run for the student election body and everything, which during the first year I really couldn't do. So I did lose 1 year of my education experience here, but I tried to make the most in the second year as much as I could. So I did join a lot of student clubs and committees. I took up an internship here at Communiteer, and I tried to get myself more out there, come out of my shell, so I could indulge more and get the experience that I came here for. And to be honest, like I was doubting my decision like last year to stay back in India during the pandemic, because I was not getting anywhere, and I was struggling to even get a job and anything, and that really got me down for a little bit. but I'm really grateful for everyone at Communiteer to accept me the way I am, to make me part of their own family and give me something that I thought that I wouldn't be able to get from Australia anymore. So yeah, I do appreciate them. And now when I look back, I can see that I have much more better soft skills. I am able to work. I'm able to multitask. I am more active than I was back in India. So I do see myself as a better person coming to Australia after the 2 years.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Khan, and really can only be commended to have achieved so much in only 2 years in the middle of a pandemic. So well done. That's really inspiring. We just have a few minutes left. So in the last, I'm just wanting to throw out a last question. So I think all the initiative that you've talked about and all these programs that students can participate in are really supporting DFAT's agenda in terms of strengthening bonds between Australia and its neighbours, but also in terms of building awareness and a more culturally more tolerant and culturally aware society. So longer term, when the students who participate in those initiatives that both of your universities offer, do they have a possibility to continue to contribute either through alumni programs or mentoring or that sort of initiative, so that they can actually leverage all of the things that they've gained through their participation in these cultural immersions initiatives to support younger students? Maybe Peter, question for you.
Yeah, I suppose that the way that look, just going back to the basics of the model and how we're working, and we're kind of recognizing that, you know, the students that we had, not all of them are going to come back. So we've actually got to have a global set of campuses, right? And so those immersive experiences that we're creating for our students enable them to participate in them wherever they may be, right? When I started, I think the traditional models had been around internships and placements. You go out to the client and work in that client. And I think that's great. But in this modern, you know, I keep saying post-COVID, but I'm not sure we're quite there yet, world, you know, what we've ended up doing is having students from all over the world participating in our projects and our service delivery for the clients. The role, and this is maybe, you know, you can tell me, Veronica, that I'm sorry, Alex, that I'm off script, but what we're using our more senior students to do is to, you know, take on the more complex projects, but often as a coach and mentor to the undergraduate students, so that they can still apply their skills. They can contribute towards, you know, the management of a good project. So we also then create kind of consulting and paid project opportunities for our students. So some of our graduates are involved in, you know, consultancy delivery, and, you know, whether that's academic research or consultancy delivery. And obviously an outcome for us also is that we've given opportunities for our clients to try before they buy. So often a lot of our graduates will end up getting employment because of the contribution that they've made. I think, you know, as the reality is, probably our graduate pool is something that we're revisiting about how we keep them connected and involved in part of our community. But to a large extent, you know, they can be part of our community because they will continue to create opportunities for the uni and for the students to participate in helping solving social challenges. I think is how we want to keep them involved. Effectively, they become champions of some of the social changes that we're supporting and trying to bring about.
Thanks very much. I think it's time for us to wrap up. It was a great discussion. Thanks, Ms. Khan, Victoria, and Peter for your time. I might hand over back to Michelle.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you everybody for participating. It was a really great discussion. And there were some really interesting shares that both Peter and Veronica gave us from the insights of the universities. And so I liked where we talked about cultural agility and cultural accessibility. They were sort of some of the terms I wrote down. And Peter, it's really good to hear about how the Social Enterprise Hub is servicing that particular area of students as well. And I do love the Student Representative Council aspect of Torrens. I was visiting there recently and I saw all of the posters, etc. And it's another great way for students to connect. And seeing that sort of happening at that university level is really great. Veronica, what I wrote down about UTS is innovation in cultural immersion. It's really great to see, I guess, a unit like Built looking at the things that are working and the things that aren't working and really trying to change those things. And so, you know, that's, I guess, from the Communiteer's perspective, that's why we invited you guys along to speak today, because we're super interested in what you have to share in this space. And as I've always said, you know, this is a development for us, and it's great to get the student perspective. So Muskan, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm a little bit proud of Muskan, because when Muskan came and applied for our internship at Communiteer, it's listening to Muskan's stories that really inspired us to design a program that was focusing on cultural immersion and to have these discussions, because supporting these students when they land on the ground in Australia is so important. And, you know, the work that Communiteer does through skilled volunteering and through getting students involved with not-for-profits has been a great way for them to have those connections that aren't just based in the university and that aren't just based with other international students. Veronica, I think you brought up a really good point around the buddy system, that buddy system has to be really well thought out with who we buddy them with. So by creating that variation of buddies, mentors, and contacts, having you know, the ability for students to do that through not-for-profits is a really great way to sort of look at that. So I guess I'll quickly bring that around to what is the program, the Cultural Immersion Program. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So at Communiteer, what we've done is, and with AVI, sorry, with Alex and the lovely team at AVI, we've put together a program to assist with student engagement at that institute level. And this is just a quick summary. We can meet with you individually if you want more details. The program can also be tailored to what you've got going on within your institute. See it as sort of a bit of an add-on, but the why is to build student social capital through cultural exchange. We see the impact as accelerating that integration. What we talked about with Muskan is accelerating that integration of students into the new environment. Who is it appropriate for? Undergrad and postgrad students in their first or second year, particularly international, cold, and even recently relocated students. So students who have gone through, whether it be a regional to city into, you know, relocation and vice versa, or an interstate relocation, these programs can also help. When it's 8 weeks of student commitment, roughly 2 hours a week of what we've put together. And what we've put together, we sort of wrap it around this concept of learn something, change something, do something. And so for learning something, we've got workshops that we deliver within the Education Institute in conjunction with the Education Institute to help students understand the Australian cultural elements. To change something is, and I guess, I know we talked about buddies, it's giving them that range of connections. So matching them with NFPs, mentors or buddies from relatable backgrounds, but most importantly, so that they are locally based to where the student is. So that access to those connections is not difficult. The other beautiful thing about the Communiteer program and the platform is we can also do that matching and that connection online. So we know that face-to-face first is always still preferred in some of these situations, but as Peter said, some of these students are remaining internationally, but studying as a community online. So we need to be able to deliver to both. And at Communiteer and this program, we absolutely can. And then the do something component is volunteering, getting involved with that not-for-profit, whether it's a role-based opportunity, getting involved in a longer-term project-based opportunity or an event-based opportunity where it's 6 hours, one day, you're there, you're surrounded by people and you're doing something to support a cause, you know, and supporting cause-related NFPs. I think in this program, we can focus it definitely on multicultural charities and not-for-profits, but I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long as the cause area resonates with the student and the student has some of that control, I think that is super important. So that's our, you know, our program in a bit of a nutshell. And I guess today we'd like to invite you to discuss this with us and see how we can give your institution the edge. We're going to invite you to join our education LinkedIn group and also to fill out some surveys. You can request a meeting as well by jumping onto the website or from my details that are up on the screen. But I guess we'll pause here and just see. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and we'll pause and just see if there was any questions that have come through for any of our panelists, for myself, for Alex, regarding sort of what we're doing in this space or any of the things that were said today.
Just one comment, Michelle, for me, I think is if you look at, you know, if this is from an immersive kind of industry experience for our students as part of their cultural transition or Australian, like the Australian context, you know, there's an upside to social enterprise and there's a downside. The upside is the need is huge. The skill base is often a little bit wanting. And so there's a logical fit for the different disciplines and the types of students to support those social enterprises. The downside and part of the difficulty, I think, sometimes, and that's where like the Communiteer model, which has got a mentor, I think is important. Yes. Often the enterprises don't have the expertise, the skills, the technical skills to provide the oversight of that opportunity. You know what I mean? So I think social impact enterprises, whether they be not-for-profits through to corporates, but having a strong social agenda, these opportunities represent such a rich opportunity for our international students and as well as domestic students. But what's key is to make sure the infrastructure is wrapped around it, because often, you know, the client won't have the supervisory capability that's often associated with, you know, placements. And that's also why I think team-based projects kind of are a good model as well, because that helps students.
So glad you said that. So glad you said team-based, because I was actually going to say you're absolutely right. And there's two kind of edges to this model, and one is team-based. And that's we have actually done a pilot with UTS, and some of the findings from the pilot were really exciting and interesting because they weren't what we thought. And two of those things are, by doing it as a team, we had one emerging leader come from that team who really worked as the spokesperson with the not-for-profit and established that link and that connection. The second finding that we had from that pilot was that the students were extremely excited and happy to be engaging with the not-for-profit and to be connecting with the not-for-profit, more so than meeting the other people in their team. They enjoyed that element as well, but it was that external helping the not-for-profit and then meeting the various people at that not-for-profit level that really, I guess, didn't surprise us, but I think it was a really happy outcome. But also, as you pointed out, the learnings that we've had from some of the pilots is by having these mentors, whether it's from the not-for-profit or from the corporate involved in this process, it gives the students a level of reassurance and guidance, as you mentioned, to help them with these programs. And that's why we've structured it this way, because, you know, you hit the nail on the head, the skills are rather lacking, and the more of these skills we can get into the marketplace through students and through corporate volunteers, the more we can help amplify the impact of these not-for-profits and social enterprises. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we're here for. We are using these tools such as, you know, these programs and the mentoring and the buddies and stuff to help that process along. Is there any other questions or any more sort of, Veronica, if you've got anything else you wanted to add before we finish up? It's really been a great session and lots of chatting, and I know we're coming towards the end. There was a question though, I think, here we go. We want to hear from you do at Communiteer, and here are the others assist the, hang on. Helps if I read it first before I try and say it out loud. Please, if anybody else has anything to add while I'm doing that, it would be great. That's great. Robin popped a thing in there to hear about what Communiteer and AVI do. So we might reach out to Robin separately and have that conversation, because there is so much more in this space that we can talk about that we just haven't had time for today. Unfortunately, when you're trying to keep it all to an hour without taking up any more people's time. Peter, I really appreciate you being on our panel, and Veronica and Muskan, thank you so much. As I said, I'm super proud of watching Muskan's journey as she's come into Australia. She's been hit with this big COVID bomb, and how she has adapted and really found her way. But as she said, she did a lot, pretty much all of it by herself, and it wasn't in a program or with that support. So that's something that we're aiming to change, and we hope to change that institute at a time. So if there's not any other questions, I think that's a wrap, people. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone else for your attendance. I've seen your lovely faces and your names. As I said, we'll be reaching out to invite you to that LinkedIn group, and with some follow-up information. We've also recorded the session and we'll be happy to share that with you, which we will be sharing through the group. So we're going to use the group as a real central repository of information and discussion. And we'd also really encourage that to be a place where we can talk to one another and share ideas as well. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.